Welcome everyone to Storytime from the Sandhill Public Library. I'm Tricia. This is our last story time for May. We'll do a few more in June, and then for summer reading, we're anticipating that we will no longer be recording story times. We will be doing them live at the library on the new patio that's being built to the side. We're talking about birds this week, and I have a slideshow that I want to share with you, and then a book. And let's see if this comes up. Here we go. Let me put it in presentation mode. Look at that. Look at that bird in the nest. Isn't that cool? This is a robin that built a nest in the back of my house in my gazebo. See the baby birds? You can see two of them in that picture. That was before they really grew their feathers and their eyes were still closed. And now you can see he's starting to get feathers on the top of his head. Isn't that cool? That's the mother bird sitting on the nest. The mother and the father took turns bringing them bugs and worms. You can see they're really hungry there. And you can see their eyes are open in this picture. And there's actually 3 of them in that picture. Pretty cool, huh? Let's see. I'm gonna go. That was kind of neat. I wanted to share that with you. I'm going to go to a book that I found on my Kindle. Let's see. This is the first big book of birds, and it's a National Geographic book for kids. I thought this one was kind of neat. Do you know what that is? That's a hummingbird. Did you know a hummingbird is the smallest bird on the earth? It's called a bee hummingbird, and it's only about 2 inches. That's really tiny. Let's get to the beginning of the book. All right, there are 10,000 different kinds of birds. Some birds fly and swim and walk around on this planet. Wow, that is a lot of birds. This bird is a blue and yellow macaw. That's a type of parrot. And we already know that not all birds fly, right? Because we talked about penguins over the winter, and penguins don't fly, but they're still birds. This is a nonfiction book. Remember, we've been talking about that. This will give you facts about whatever it is that we're talking about. It's not a story that somebody made up in their imagination. Birds are animals. Other kinds of animals include mammals, insects, reptiles, amphibians, that's a cool word, amphibians, fish, and more. But what makes a bird a bird? No other kind of animal has feathers. So any animal with feathers is a bird. Bird feathers come in many shapes, sizes, and colors. They help birds fly, they help them stay warm, and they help keep them dry. Different kinds of birds have different kinds of feathers. The way the feathers work depends on what the bird needs them to do. Well, that's an interesting fact. Here's another thing that birds have. What's that? You know, we use that. That's the sign for bird, and it indicates the what? The bird's mouth is called a beak. All birds have beaks. You can tell a lot about a bird, what it eats, by looking at its beak. Beak are also called bills. Here are a few examples of the many kinds of beaks that birds have. So up here we have a black skimmer. It uses its longer lower bill as it skims food into its mouth as it flies above the water. Well, that's cool. It's like a giant scoop. Down here, a long skinny beak helps the collared sunbird reach into flowers to sip nectar. We learned about that when we talked about bees, right? And flowers. A great spotted woodpecker that pecks wood uses its beak to pound into the wood to find insects. So it has a strong pointed beak or bill. Bald eagles have sharp hooked beaks that help it rip pieces of meat from the animals that it eats. So 1, 2, 3, 4 different kinds of bills. Many kinds of birds are not able to do much of anything when they are hatching from their eggs. They do not have many feathers. They need their parents to keep them warm, feed them, and protect them. Oh, that's why the mother and father were taking care of those babies, because they couldn't see and they couldn't fly yet because they didn't have any feathers. Huh, cool. Some kinds of birds are more independent when they hatch. They have feathers and can walk around. Some can even swim. Neat. Eventually, a young bird fledges. There's a new word, which is when it can survive outside its nest. Once a fledgling can leave its nest, it often still needs help from its parents, but soon it will live all on its own. Birds grow up much faster than children. All birds have wings, and most birds can fly. We've talked about that, right? I'm not going to read all the words on every page. Let's see. Bird watching is what this page talks about. Lots of people enjoy watching birds. They are called birders, and their hobby is called birding. I like to watch the birds in my backyard. I put out hummingbird feeders so I can see the hummingbirds. I put out bird feeders so I can see the birds eating in the wintertime. And this page talks about all the different parts of a bird. Its tail, its wing, its throat, its chin, its beak, its head, its neck, its chest, its belly, its foot, its legs. Flyers, runners, and swimmers. Most birds do fly, but some cannot. Some birds are excellent swimmers and divers. We talked about those guys right there, right? Penguins. Big groups of these brightly colored birds fly around together. This is a rainbow lorikeet. Look at all those birds in that picture. There are more than 350 species of parrots. That's a lot. And did you know that some types of parrots can learn how to mimic words? So it seems like they're talking. It's pretty neat. I'm waiting to see if it talks about the largest bird in the world. The smallest was a kind of hummingbird. This is a peregrine falcon. This bird is the fastest moving animal in the whole world. Wow. That is a really fast bird. I like this book because it gives you facts on them. I'm going to have to see if the library can get this book. Oh, we talked about those. This is a ruby-throated hummingbird. This is the kind we have around here. These are the ones that come and feed at my hummingbird feeder. The ruby-throated hummingbird can flap its wings 53 times in 1 second. That's why they make so much noise as they're flying by. This tiny bird is an expert flyer. And remember I said that the smallest bird in the world is a bee hummingbird? Pretty cool. Wow. They have long beaks because they reach their beak in, and they have a very long tongue to get the nectar that they feed on. That's a lot of different kinds of hummingbirds. There it is. This is the biggest bird in the world. Do you know what that is? Did you guess right? An ostrich. And an ostrich is another bird that does not fly. And look at this picture over here on the right-hand side. That's how big a child is, and that's how big an ostrich is. An ostrich can be about 6.5 feet tall. That's really, really tall, isn't it? And look at its foot. It only has 2 toes. How many toes do you have? Did you know? Wow. Ostriches live in flocks and they share nests. One nest can have as many as 60 eggs in it. That's a lot of babies to take care of. Oh, this is a royal penguin. We talked about them in the wintertime. Penguins cannot fly, but they are powerful swimmers. I'm going to go back 1 second. Do you know what the ostrich does? It doesn't fly and it doesn't swim. Do you know what it does do? Runs. It can run really, really fast, and it has very powerful legs. Ooh, these are always so fun to watch. This is an Atlantic puffin. The puffin's colorful beak reminds people of clowns. I like puffins. Both parents take care of their chick. They take turns heading out to sea to find the baby food. There's a game we can play. Oh, look at that. That's one of the most colorful birds. Do you know what that one is? It's a peacock. And when peacocks scream, they're really, really loud. This is a wood thrush. This bird's song is one of the most beautiful songs among the birds. The wood thrush can sing more than 50 different songs. Wow, that's a lot. I like to listen to the birds out in my backyard. Western gribbies. I don't think I've ever heard of those. A lot of birds dance. Sometimes only the male dances to attract a female. Other birds, like the western greebies, dance together as a pair. Well, that's cool. Look at them dancing on the water like that. That's pretty neat. Aren't birds unusual? They're so cool. Oh, check that out. Look at that baby. A greeby chick has a bare patch of yellow skin on its head, and when it begs for food, that patch turns bright red. Aren't nonfiction books great? They give us so much information. A greeby's nest is a floating pile of plant material. The birds attach the nest to the plants that grow in shallow water. Well, that's clever. Oh, a red-crowned crane. Let's see, a red-crowned crane can live to be more than 70 years old. Wow. In the wild, oh, that's in captivity. Wild cranes probably live to be about 40 years old. So if they're living in the wild, they can live till they're 40. If they're living in captivity, they can live to be 70. That's because it's more dangerous out in the wild. That's a pretty bird. Look at how striking it looks, black and white. This is the magnificent frigate bird. Wow, look at he's puffing out his throat. Male frigate birds fill their throat pouches with air, making them look like a big red balloon. They wave their heads, clap their bills, and shake their wings. This is showing off because the females are flying around. Look at, that's pretty cool. It does look like a real big balloon. Huh. What is this bird? Oh, that's still the frigate birds. Yeah, I should have looked up there in the picture. You can see his red throat. What other? Let's see. Wilson's bird of paradise. Colorful feathers and fancy dancing help the male attract a mate. Look at that pretty bluish purple. That's called turquoise. Wow. And that top of his head is bald. It doesn't have any feathers on it. This is a really great book. Lots of birds sing songs too. Sometimes if you listen out in your backyard, you can tell the difference between the birds. This chapter says builders, weavers, and nesters. This is a white stork. I wonder if it's going to talk about, doesn't say what kind of stork this is. The Malibu stork has the longest wingspan. When they measure the wings, they stretch their wings out like this, and they go from one tip all the way across the body to the other tip. So think about holding both your arms out. Those would be the bird's wings. And a Malibu stork from one end to the other end is 13 feet long. Can you imagine? Those are some cool numbers. Maybe you could do some tracing or measuring at home. So the smallest bird is 2 inches. The largest bird is 6.5 feet. And then the stork has the longest wingspan, and that's 13 feet. That's some cool math measuring you could do. I have these in my backyard. They make a beautiful, beautiful song. A bright red male cardinal is easy to see on a winter day, that's for sure. And if you see this bright red one, that's the male. The females are not quite as red. Oh, look, and there's a picture of them. See, the male is a bright, bright red, and the female is red, but it's a softer color. So she's harder to see. Well, we have tons of these around, house sparrows. These noisy birds like to live around people, probably because we feed them. This is a sociable weaver. Look at the nest. This bird uses their nest over and over again. Sometimes other kinds of birds live in there also, so they share their nest. That's interesting to know. Wow, look at that nest. That's pretty neat. It looks like it's made of mud, doesn't it? These birds use mud to make big oven-shaped nests, and they use their nest only once. This is a Rufous hornero. I don't think I've ever heard of that bird. Wow. It says the mud that this bird uses dries in the sun and becomes very hard. Sometimes they mix in grass, straw, or hair to make the nest even stronger. That's how they make mud bricks, like an adobe building. This is, I'm not even sure how to say this one, Vogel-capped bowerbird. Another bird I've never heard of. Remember how many kinds of birds did this book say there was? No wonder why I've never heard of some of these. This bird uses decorations, the male uses decorations to attract his mate. Well, that's kind of neat. Wow, those eating berries? What do birds eat, I wonder? Do you know what they eat? I know they like to eat seeds because I feed them that in my bird feeder. And I saw that mother and father robin feeding their babies worms. And I know they like to eat berries too. This is a barn swallow. These are really cool to see flying. They have a unique shape. These swallows build nests of mud in buildings that were made by people. Barn swallows almost always make their nests in places like barns, sheds, or in bridges. The male and the female work together to build the nest. The birds collect mud from mud puddles or sides of streams. Sometimes they mix the mud with grass. We just talked about that. It makes the nest stronger. Because you wouldn't want to have a nest with baby birds in it and have it fall apart, right? Because then the eggs or the babies would fall out. So that's not cool. This is a pretty duck. This is called a wood duck. This duck has claws on its feet that help it grip the branches. I didn't know that. I've seen a lot of wood ducks. Have you ever seen a duck, it says? The mother duck lives in a nest inside the cavity with soft feathers. So we did talk about building nests and how they like to line them so they're soft. That's kind of neat. Look at that baby. Looks like he's jumping out of his nest. Oh, do you know what that bird is? That is a bald eagle. The bald eagle makes the biggest single nest of any kind of bird. You know, if you and your mom or your dad or whoever grown up takes care of you, there's a lot of videos online of eagles' nests. They're called webcams. And they actually, people go up and they set up a camera and it takes pictures of the eagles raising their babies. The eagle is a symbol of the United States. It's our national bird. And these are protected birds. I knew what that was, but it doesn't look like the ones we have around here. Do you know what it is? Can you tell? This is an Australian brush turkey. This bird builds a nest to help keep its eggs warm. We have a lot of turkeys around here. Sometimes when I'm driving, I have to stop until all the turkeys cross the road. Sometimes they live in flocks like with 30 turkeys in them. Here's a baby turkey. This is a common cuckoo. This sneaky bird lays her eggs in the nests of other birds. So that bird doesn't take care of her babies. She gives them to other people to take care, or other birds to take care of. That's pretty neat. Oh, I bet you know what that is. That is a barn owl. What does that bird have in its mouth? This bird is called a pelican. This is the American white pelican. And pelicans have a special type of bill. Remember, we talked about that. It has a big scoop that can get bigger when it puts food in it. It's called a pouch. And look at that pelican has a whole fish in there. That's a big mouth. Those pelicans are eating. See, this little picture is a good picture of its mouth. Its beak has a top part that's not too big, but then a bottom part that's really big. Oh, there's a snowy owl. Why do you think the snowy owl is called a snowy owl? There's a question. What color is it? There's a lot of different kinds of owls. The one on the top is called a great horned owl because it looks like it has horns on top of its head, right? Burrowing owls are very small. Each owl is only 10 inches tall. Wow. They live in nests in the ground. That's why they're called burrowing owls. An eastern screech owl. So the snowy owl was called a snowy owl because it was white. Why do you think a screech owl is called a screech owl? Wow, you might see these birds around here. That is a plated woodpecker. They have a very big red head and they make a lot of noise when they're pecking. What do they peck in the wood for again? What is that woodpecker pecking in that tree for? Look at the holes that it leaves. Do you remember what it's looking for? Bugs. And there's the robin, just like the one that was in my backyard. Look at that worm in its mouth. It's eating a earthworm, or maybe it's collecting the worm to feed to its babies. Well, that might be the end of my book. Well, I'll stop the share because that might have been the last page of my book because it wasn't turning. So that was kind of a neat book. I found that one on Amazon under the Kindle Reader books. So let's see. Let's read a book. This one, I have this one in a board book, but it's a really cute book, so we'll read it. Let's see. I'm going to switch the camera so you can see the picture. This book is called Owl Babies, and it was written by Martin Wendell, and the illustrations are by Patrick Benson. And this is a Chadwick Press book. And this, I've had this book for a really long time. I'm not sure how old it is, but it's one of my favorites. And it isn't a board book. This one is a board book. You give these board books to babies so that they don't tear the pages, but it also comes in a bigger book, a picture book like you find at the library. Let's see, I can probably get a little closer. How's that? Once there were 3 baby owls, Sarah and Percy and Bill. They lived in a hole in the trunk of a tree with their owl mother. The hole had twigs and leaves and owl feathers in it. It was their house. One night they woke up and their owl mother was gone. "Where's Mommy?" asked Sarah. "Oh my goodness," said Percy. "I want my mommy," said Bill. The baby owls thought, and all owls think a lot. "I think she's gone hunting," said Sarah. "To get us some food," said Percy. "I want my mommy," said Bill. But their owl mother didn't come back. The baby owls came out of their house and they sat on the tree and they waited. A big branch for Sarah, a small branch for Percy, and an old piece of ivy for Bill. "She'll be back," said Sarah. "Back soon," said Percy. What did Bill say? "I want my mommy. I want my mommy." He sounds like he's a little nervous that Mom disappeared. It was dark in the wood, and they had to be brave, for things were moving all around them. "She'll bring us mice and things that are nice," said Sarah. "I suppose so," said Percy. But you know what Bill said? Bill said, "I want my mommy." They sat and they thought. All owls think a lot. "I think we should all sit on my branch," said Sarah. And they did, all 3 of them together. "Suppose she got lost," said Sarah. "Our fox got her," said Percy. "I want my mommy," said Bill. And the baby owls closed the owl's eyes and they wished that their owl mother would come home. What do you suppose their mother's out doing? And she came, soft and silent. She swooped through the trees to Sarah and Percy and Bill. "Mommy!" they cried, and they flapped and they danced and they bounced up and down on their branch. "What's all this fuss?" their mother owl said. "I knew you'd come back." "You knew I'd come back," she says. The baby owls thought, because all owls think a lot. "I knew it," said Sarah. "I knew it too," said Percy. And what did Bill say? "I love my mommy," said Bill. That's a fun little book about baby owls. Let's see, let's check out this book. So that was a fiction book. Somebody wrote this book out of their imagination. This is a non-fiction book. Let's see, I have to pull this up a little bit so you can be able to see the pictures. This is a book on nests. It was written by Julie Murray. This is on the new bookshelf. We just got this book. This is adobobooks.com. That's where this book was published by, or who the book was published by. Oh, hey, we saw that picture, right? Let's see. Can you see it? Books are hard to read on Zoom because I never know where to put the camera so that you can actually see the book. Nests. Many kind of animals live in nests. Do you remember what that was? A stork. Birds build nests. It's where they lay their eggs. Okay, that's another pelican. They're sitting on their eggs to keep them warm. Many nests are made of twigs, mud, and grass. A robin's nest is shaped like a bowl. That's the nest that I showed you, right? In my backyard. There, is that better? You can see I turned on a little lamp. You can see the pictures better. That's just what the babies looked like in my nest that was in my backyard. A bald eagle's nest is big. It sits way up high in a tree. It can be 6 feet wide. Wow, that's longer than I'm tall. But I guess owls are really big, so they would need a big nest. An ostrich nest is in the ground. Ostrich eggs are really, really big. Remember, an ostrich is the largest bird that lives in the world. So it would make sense that it had really big eggs. Oh, wait a minute. What is this? Wasps live in a nest. Wow. So birds aren't the only thing that builds nests? A wasp nest grows and grows and grows. Wow. I hadn't thought about that. If you see this, don't go near it. If you scare those wasps, can you see the wasp right there? They're striped. Can you see it? It's hard to see. There's a couple right there. They're little flying insects and they're black and yellow stripes. They have stingers. And if you scare them and they tell all their friends in the nest, you're going to get a lot of stings and you could get sick from it. So you don't want to scare them. Stay away from that. Ants live in a nest also. Their nest is under the ground. Wow. I hadn't thought about other things building nests. Sea turtles dig a nest in the sand. They bury their eggs. Wow, so birds and insects and turtles. Wow, I wonder if anything else builds a nest. Have you ever seen a nest? Look at this nest. That's made out of grass. Looks like it's all woven together. That's neat. The robin's nest I had in my backyard was made of sticks. What else lives in a nest? Alligators, gray squirrels, mice, weavers. Wow. That's pretty cool. That's a great little book to start thinking about nests, right? Let's see, do I have time for one more? I have a couple picked out. This is a great book at the library. This is again on our nonfiction shelf. It's a DK guide to birds. I'm not going to read you that one. I'm going to read you this quick book here called Birds. Let's see, do I have enough room to show it to you? Birds was illustrated by Laura Donzek, and it was written by Kevin Henkes. I like the pictures of this book, so I wanted to quickly share it to you. With you. This is a green willow book. In the morning, I hear birds singing through my open window. I do like it when I can leave the window open. Birds can be yellow or blue or brown or red or even green, I think. Birds do come in lots of colors. Sometimes they are so black that you can't see their eyes or their feathers, just their shape. That would be a crow or a raven. Birds can be really big or really small, or any size in between. You know what that one is? That's a seagull. You see those at the ocean a lot. And this one's hard to see. This is a piping plover. You definitely see those at the ocean. Once I saw 7 birds on a telephone wire, and they didn't move, and they didn't move, and they didn't move. And then I looked away for just a second, and they were all gone. A lot of times birds will sit together, and then if one decides to fly, they'll all fly. If birds made marks with their tail feathers when they flew, think about what the sky would look like. That's kind of neat. If clouds were birds, they would look like this. Or this. A bird sleeping with its beak tucked into its wing. Sometimes in winter, a bird in a tree will look like one red leaf that was left over. See the cardinal right there? Cardinals are easy to spot in the winter time. If there are lots of birds in one tree and they all flew away at the same time, it looks like the tree yelled, "Surprise!" That is true. If I were a bird, I'd ask where all the other birds go when it's stormy and they can't get home to their nest. Birds don't like to fly around when it's really wet. I like to pretend I'm a bird. I can't really fly, but I can do this. I can sing a song. So we can sing songs and birds can sing songs, but we can't fly like birds can we? All right, I'm going to change the video so you can see my face again, and I'll say goodbye for now. I will be doing story time outdoors on Thursday morning. Actually, this video is going to post Thursday afternoon, so you're not going to be able to go. Hopefully you read the library calendar and you'll see that we are doing live story times or in-person story times at different places around town. And maybe we'll see you there. All right. I'll see you guys next week for another story time.